Rwandan President Paul Kagame met UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in London on Thursday ahead of the coronation of King Charles III. The meeting is part of one-to-one discussions the British Prime Minister is holding with world leaders. Some South Africans are calling for Britain to return the world's largest diamond, known as the Star of Africa, which is set in the royal scepter that King Charles III will hold at his coronation. King Charles, along with his Queen Camilla, will officially begin a reign to the unknown. A majority of Brits support having a monarch, but Charles is not so popular. Good afternoon. You're tuned in to Gulf TV Africa. Welcome to 1 p.m. news edition. I am ITUNU Saturday. Here's the news in details. On the national scene, sports journalists go to great lengths to provide information to fans of various disciplines. On the occasion of International Media Day, we take a look at the difficulties that they face and the prospects for better results in their work. Here's more details in the report. The aim of sports journalists is to report and inform on the events they witness, while at the same time providing a critical eye. In Benin, all are in agreement on the situation that plagues the sector, the lack of an association or body representing the corporation. Beyond the lack of a representative body for the sports media, Issa Hamadou mentions other problems that plague the system.
Alors, l'autre aspect qu'on pourrait également noter au niveau de la presse sportive, c'est le manque de formation.
The other aspect also noted in the sports media is the lack of training. The sports media today does not manage the chance of evolution. There's a lot we need to know. There's a lot of new knowledge that is important we grasp. Also, there's a lot of new dynamics at the level of the association we dream of. But without a real grouping, how can we achieve this? So I think that this is one of the key things that obstruct a good evolution of the sports media in Benin. This also includes the lack of training. We never finish learning as long as we need to train. We need to continue to learn. Faced with these different problems, a positive result is urgently needed. It should be noted that the state of the sports journalism in Benin has an impact on the promotion of sports in our country. Each player has a duty to contribute to the building of a sustainable sports media. Rwandan President Paul Kagame met the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in London on Thursday ahead of the coronation of King Charles III. The meeting is part of one-to-one discussions the British Prime Minister is holding with world leaders as they arrive in London to take part of the royal ceremony. More details in the report. Rwandan President Paul Kagame met the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in London on Thursday ahead of the coronation of King Charles III. The meeting is part of one-to-one discussions the British Prime Minister is holding with world leaders as they arrive in London to take part of the royal ceremony. The UK has agreed a multi-million-pound partnership with Rwanda designed to tackle the number of small boats of migrants coming to Britain via unauthorized routes. The deal, worth £140 million, will allow the UK to send to Rwanda anyone who enters the country unlawfully. Sunak added that the United Kingdom and Rwanda are leading the way on the global migration issue. The British Prime Minister also praised the role of the Rwandan president as chair in office of the Commonwealth over the past year, saying he had led the way on issues such as trade and sustainability. The plan to send migrants to the East African nation was ruled lawful by High Court judges, but so far been stalled by legal action and no flights have taken off. Some South Africans are calling for Britain to return the world's largest diamond, known as the Star of Africa, which is set in the royal scepter that King Charles III will hold at his coronation today. The diamond, which weighs 530 carats, was discovered in South Africa in 1905 and presented to the British monarchy by the colonial government in the country, which was then under British rule. More details in the reports.
Well, some South Africans are calling for Britain to return the world's largest diamond, known as the Star of Africa, which is set in the royal scepter that King Charles III will hold at his coronation on Saturday. The diamond, which weighs 530 carats, was discovered in South Africa in 1905 and presented to the British monarchy by the colonial government in the country, which was then under British rule. Now, amid a global conversation about returning artwork and artifacts that were pillaged during colonial times, some South Africans are calling for the diamonds to be brought back, while others say they don't feel strongly about it. Officially known as Cullinan 1, the diamond in the scepter was cut from the Cullinan diamond, a 3,100 carat stone that was mined near Pretoria.
It is an honor to have the South African diamond in and under the control of the British monarchy. It gets a lot of emphasis on it, and it promotes South Africa as a destination for its wealth and its knowledge for mining South African diamonds.
To King Charles, I think it would be right for him to ascend his throne, ensuring that he's showing a sign of hope to us Africans, those who were previously colonized by well, not by him directly, but by his predecessors. And I think if he wants to be a recognized monarchy, a respected monarchy by the African people, it would be wise of him to return what was taken from us without our consent.
We want the crown to be brought back to South Africa where it belongs. At least it will restore the dignity of the African child. At least it will restore the self-respect of the African child. So it's a touchy subject to me.
I don't think it matters anymore. Things have changed. We're evolving. What mattered for them in the olden days about being superior above all, based on being Britain and whatnot, it doesn't matter to us anymore.
King Charles, along with his Queen Camilla, will officially begin a reign into the unknown. The death of Queen Elizabeth last year after 70 years on the throne, the longest reign in British history. The Queen became an icon of stability and continuity. But the people Charles leads in 2023 are different in many ways compared to the subject Elizabeth first greeted in 1953. A majority of Brits support having a monarch, but Charles is not so popular. Changing attitudes and demographics mean the numbers wanting to mothball the monarchy are growing. More details in the reports.
Since becoming king last September, Charles has been busy. His first visit as head of state was to Germany, where he became the first British monarch to address the Bundestag, Germany's parliament. He impressed, not least because half his speech was in German.
Sehr geehrter Herr Bundespräsident, sehr geehrte Frau Bundestagspräsidentin.
Charles himself has German ancestry. His father, Prince Philip, came from German nobility. And his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, also had German ancestors. But Charles's upbringing was very much British and aristocratic.
Charles, Prince of Wales.
After all, he was born to be king. Now he finally is. He's keen to prove he's doing things his way, while acknowledging the traditional role he's inherited.
I shall strive to follow the inspiring example I have been set in upholding constitutional government.
He's also trying to tackle some difficult issues. They include cooperating with a study looking into the British monarchy's historic relationship with slavery. As well as King of the UK, Charles is also head of state of 14 Commonwealth countries. Some, like Jamaica, were centres of the British slave trade. Another relationship that remains complicated for the King is with his youngest son, Harry. The Prince's controversial autobiography, published earlier this year, documents just how dysfunctional his royal life had become. Much of the book focuses on his traumatic childhood. What seemed like a happy marriage between his parents ended in bitter divorce. A year later, his mother, Princess Diana, was killed in a car crash. At that time, Charles and the royal family were deeply unpopular. The public had not forgiven Charles for having an affair with Camilla Parker Bowles while still married to Diana. But by 2005, Charles and Camilla were officially husband and wife. Together, they worked hard to repair their image and win over the public. Charles continued his charitable works and never gave up his environmental campaign, which he began long before it was popular.
And as I've tried to indicate for quite some time, the climate crisis really is a genuine emergency, and tackling it is utterly essential.
Royal protocol makes it more difficult for him to now speak out. After decades of waiting to be king, Charles knows his place.
Lawmakers approved the new version of the country's anti-gay bill that removes a clause that appeared to criminalize identifying as LGBTQ. The initial version of the bill was widely criticized by the international community. More details in the report.
Ugandan lawmaker approved on Tuesday a new version of the country's anti-gay bill that removes a clause that appears to criminalize identifying as LGBTQ. The initial version of the bill was widely criticized by the international community. Once the bill is passed into law, it is the duty of the executives to execute it, and they shall do their part, as the executive stated, the Attorney General of Uganda.
We thank you very much. The bill, once the bill is passed into law, it's the duty of the executive to execute it, and we shall do our part as the executive.
Last month, Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni returned the bill back to the parliament asking for changes. The bill in its original version had prescribed life imprisonment for homosexuality and the death penalty for aggravated homosexuality.
I know all of us have faced intimidation out there. You know, people being promised to be denied visas, travel restrictions and bans. But we've been able to withstand that.
Mbayo Esther. While I was in the US, I challenged the people I met, especially Africans, that we can see their struggle to defend the right to sexual orientation. And I don't see them defend the right of Africa in, say, transfer of technology like the Chinese are doing. The black race is struggling to transfer homosexuality, not technology, to Africa.
Previously, the United States has warned of an economic consequence if the legislation is enacted. While I was in the US, I challenged the people I met, especially Africans, that we can see their struggle to defend the rights to sexual orientation, but I do not see them defend the right of Africa in, say, the transfer of technology like the Chinese are doing. The black race is struggling to transfer homosexuality, not technology, to Africa, and nobody could answer me, added Matthias Mpunga, Ugandan legislature and leader of the opposition. Homosexuality is already illegal in the East African country under a colonial era law criminalizing sex acts between people of the same gender.
Two pastors based in coastal Kenya have appeared in court over the death of at least 110 of their congregants, many of whom are believed to have starved to death. Self-proclaimed Pastor Paul Ntega Mackenzie, who set up the Good News International Church in 2003, is accused of inciting followers to starve to death to meet Jesus, appeared in the dock in Malindi. More details in the report.
Two pastors based in coastal Kenya have appeared in court over the death of at least 110 of their congregants, many of whom are believed to have starved to death. Self-proclaimed Pastor Paul Nthenga Mackenzie, who set up the Good News International Church in 2003, is accused of inciting followers to starve to death in order to meet Jesus. He appeared in the dock in Malindi. He will face terrorism charges over the death of more than 100 people found buried in what has been dubbed the Shakahola Forest Massacre, prosecutors stated. The small courtroom was packed to relatives of victims as Mackenzie, dressed in a pink and black jacket and brown trousers, was brought in by about half a dozen police officers along with 8 other defendants. After a brief hearing, the case was moved to the High Court in Kenya's second largest city of Mombasa, where the suspects will face terrorism charges, prosecutor Vivian Mkambanga. There is a court in Mombasa that is gazetted to handle cases under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. Kambanga told the magistrate during the hearing in Malindi, asking for the case to be moved to the High Court. Sadly, more than 100 bodies have been exhumed from dozens of mass graves on his property within Kilifi County. Children are believed to be among the dead, but it is unclear how many, as some of the bodies are in poor condition. Autopsies on 40 of the bodies found on Mackenzie's property revealed that the causes of death range from starvation to strangulation and suffocation. The higher court has authorized Mackenzie's detention until Friday, when an application to hold him for a further 30 days pending terrorism investigations will be heard. His wife, Rhoda Mawo, was arrested on Monday night from a hideout in the coastal town of Mtwapa after weeks on the run. It should be noted that Mackenzie had been charged in 2017 over the death of children at his church. In 2019, he closed the church and moved to a ranch in a forested area of Kilifi County, where hundreds of families built houses. One of his followers told the Associated Press that it was at this time that the plan to starve till death in order to meet Jesus was hatched, and his followers started dying. Human rights groups had been sounding the alarm for months until April, when police began investigating and mass graves were discovered at the ranch. Currently, police are conducting search and rescue missions on the 800 acres property and at an even bigger ranch nearby. So far, 48 people have been rescued alive and 24 arrested, according to Coastal Regional Commissioner Rhoda Onyancha. In another development, Pastor Ezekiel Odero, whose church is in the same county as Mackenzie, has also appeared in court. Now, he will remain in custody for a further 2 days as investigations continue. Odero was arrested last week in connection to the death of dozens of his congregants at his mega church, which draws thousands of people from across the country. He's also been investigated for his links to Mackenzie. Prosecutors have linked Odero and Mackenzie, saying in court documents that they share a history of business investments, including a television station used to pass radicalized messages to followers. After Mackenzie closed his church in 2019, Odero bought a television channel from him. In his filing to court, Odero said he wanted to strongly disassociate himself from Mackenzie and disagreed with his teachings. His followers trooped in large numbers outside the court on Tuesday, praying for his release.
Election monitoring increased as incumbent President Erdogan faces biggest challenge amid voting security concerns. More details in the report.
It's busy in the Istanbul office of the non-partisan election monitoring group, Türkiye Gönüllüleri. Staff are recruiting volunteers to make sure they have enough people to cover Turkey's general elections on May 14th.
Now in the 81 cities, we are organizing the system. In each voting area, we are having a Türkiye Gönüllüleri person in each school. We need at least 200,000 people. At the moment, we haven't reached that point yet.
The group trains staff through telephone support, online videos, Zoom, and face-to-face meetings. The monitors learn how to collect voting numbers at polling stations and to collect those figures to ensure the official results are accurate.
As a young person, I cannot live the way I demand, I cannot live the way I desire. And that is why I want to protect my vote and ballot box's duty here, because there are many security gaps.
Opinion polls indicate an increasingly tight presidential and parliamentary election. The government says all steps have been taken to ensure a fair vote. Despite this, officials say there are still concerns about voter security. Turkiye Gunululeri has recruited a team of lawyers who will help monitor the vote. Volunteers are also being sent to Turkey's earthquake-struck Hatay region.
Those who remained here have concerns, saying, I wonder if our votes will be stolen. I wonder if there will be someone who will protect our votes. As volunteers, we are doing whatever we can to ensure that the election is held in a fair way. We currently have nearly 1,000 volunteers here. We've allocated them to voting stations.
Observers say Turkiye Gunululeri, along with other election monitor groups working with political parties, played a key role in helping to ensure 2019 votes were fairly counted in a hotly contested Istanbul mayoral election. The outcome of that poll resulted in Erdogan's party losing its decades-long domination of the city. Officials say the 2019 Istanbul vote has motivated some to watch the polls more closely.
Instead of thinking everything is going to be bad, you have to go to your school or wherever you're voting and follow what people are doing. That's the main idea, actually.
As parties step up their campaigns, some observers say the role of election monitors could be pivotal to the outcome of the polls.
To end this news edition, here's a recap of our top stories. Rwandan President Paul Kagame met UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak in London on Thursday ahead of the coronation of King Charles III. The meeting is part of one-to-one discussions with British Prime Ministers holding with world leaders. Some South Africans are calling for Britain to return the world's largest diamond, known as the Star of Africa, which is set in the royal scepter that King Charles III will hold at his coronation. King Charles, along with his Queen Camilla, will officially begin a reign into the unknown. A majority of Brits support having a monarch, but Charles is not so popular. Here we'll conclude today's news edition, coming to you live from Gulf TV Africa. Enjoy the rest of your day.